What is going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of JB360. We have here the Turboant R9. This is Turboant's latest model in their pretty robust scooter lineup. They've been making commuter scooters for I guess a few years now. I did review the X7, the dual battery version, and more recently they came out with the R9, and I'm really excited to test this thing out. Because one of the things that does jump out to you when you see this scooter is the dual suspension. You don't see this a lot in most of these commuter scooters. Usually it's just kind of like single suspension, like a hardtail, but this one actually does have dual shocks, actually quadruple shocks, 2 in the back and 2 in the front, which is great, especially if you're riding in an area that does have a lot of bumps, a lot of potholes and stuff like that. All right, so let's go over some of the specs here. The R9 comes with a 48 volt 12.5 amp hour battery. The motor that we're rocking here is the 500 watt motor. This one peaks at about, I think, 750 watts if I'm not mistaken, but it's a single motor drive scooter. We have our little headlight here in the front for night riding. It's not that bright, but it does provide some good visibility if you're sort of riding in the dark and cars are, you're riding with cars and stuff like that. We have also our 10-inch pneumatic tires. These I don't believe are the puncture proof ones. They might be, I have to double check for you, but they have like a nice tread on them. You can tell they're meant for like sort of dual sport purposes. Got the nice rubber sealed deck here, really comfortable. In the back here we have our rear tail light, and I'll get more into that once we get to the dash. As we make our way over to the dash here, we have our signal lights here, and it actually does give off like a audible beeping sound, like when you leave the signal on, which I believe is really great, because a lot of times like some e-bikes, some standard e-bikes don't come with sort of an indicator letting you know that the signal's on. Especially one with sound, because especially if you're riding in the wind, you're not going to be able to hear or see that signal indicator on. So big ups to Turboant for adding that sound feature. Of course, you have the horn here. One thing I forgot to mention, these come with drum brakes on the front and back, which are perfectly fine for this type of scooter. It's rated for a top speed of about 28 miles per hour, so I think drum brakes are more than enough to hold its own for this scooter. Now, if you notice here, there's this little clip, which I actually originally thought was like a phone mount holder or something like that, but this actually clips onto the latch over here so that you're able to fold your scooter. Unfold your scooter over here, you would hit this, pull this latch up right here, pull it out, and then obviously catch the stem before it falls. And then if you notice over here, you're gonna clip that right there, and then you'll be able to carry it like so. Now again, just so you guys know, this scooter weighs about 55 pounds, so bringing it up the stairs, depending on how you want to do it, you can use 2 hands, you can use 1 hand. Now, as we make our way over to the screen here, we have our light indicator here to let you know your headlight's on. So to turn that off, you would just hit the power button once, and that toggles the switch. Over here is your mode switch button. There are 3 modes. We have walking mode. This is like normal drive mode, 2, and then also 3 is your highest speed setting. These indicators here on the left and right of the display represent your battery level. Of course, you have your miles per hour here in the front. And then in terms of throttle, we have our standard thumb throttle here. All right, guys, so that is the R9 in a nutshell. Maybe we'll do a top speed run and then see how this thing fares on New York City streets. All right, here we go. We are out and about here on the R9 from Turboant. I'm gonna take this strip here and do a little top speed run and see what kind of numbers we get. Now, I did test the GPS out. The GPS is in sync with the display here. So let's see, you're getting about 26, 27, 20. In about, oh, Oh, 27 miles an hour. Darn. Okay, not too bad. Ooh. That's pretty solid. Pretty solid, I think, for urban commuter. Not too bad. Again, the thing that pops out, you know, with the R9, obviously, is the front and rear suspension. And it does a pretty good job of absorbing some of those bumps. Now, I wouldn't say it's like the best suspension out there. I think these like springs are kind of decent, but at the same time, I think they get the job done. See, like there, right there, hitting that. Woo. Hitting those bumps there. There was a bit of shock absorption. Unfortunately, you cannot dampen the springs here. All right, so we're gonna test out the modes here. I'm gonna flip it onto walking mode, which is kind of like mode 1. So you see here, I have the thumb throttle enabled. We are going at a relatively slow pace at about 10 miles an hour. Okay, not too bad. About, yeah, 9-10 miles an hour. Okay, so let's bump it up to mode 2. All right, that one has a little bit more torque. And again, with this scooter, you don't have to push to start it. It pretty much just takes off once you enable the throttle. So there's in terms of that learning curve, if you're kind of an experienced scooter rider, you're gonna like that you don't have to kind of push it to enable the scooter to move. But man, we're zooming here at about like 20 miles an hour on mode 2. I like this mode. This is a nice like bike path speed mode right here. But yeah, we are moving here. Oh, got some bumps here. Oh, jeez. Pretty good, pretty good. Now, one thing that I say, I say this about a lot of commuter scooters because sometimes the user interface is kind of in a weird position. So for instance, like here, the power button, which is also the light button, is located in the middle of your handlebar, as well as the mode switch. I think for me, if I were to redesign it, I would have put it like on either thumb side over here, just so it's easy access, especially if you have to change modes on the fly. Because to have to kind of take my hand off and then switch modes or turn on the light, it's kind of risky, you know, in terms of balancing the scooter with one arm, which is not ideal. You want to always keep two hands, especially on a stand-up scooter. Like here, I'm doing it again. I want to go to mode 3, but I really don't want to take my hand off of the handlebar. Again, I mean, it's not going that fast, but I mean, especially if you're in sort of unfamiliar terrain, you're not familiar with some of the potholes and bumps that are around, it could be a little bit sketchy for you, especially taking your hand off. One thing I will say with these brakes, they definitely grab for sure. It is kind of jarring a little bit because if you kind of slightly press down on the brakes and engage both, it just kind of like stops the scooter like instantly. And I think it's due to the regen factor that's enabled on the motor. So one thing I found interesting too, the battery indicator here are these sort of gauge bars on the side. I don't know how I feel about that design. I just don't think it's clear what it is, you know, when you first kind of turn on the scooter and you're riding. I mean, I just don't know if it's like, is one side the battery bar, one side the acceleration bar? I don't know. It was kind of confusing when I was kind of first like turning on the scooter. But yeah, this is really solid. This is something that, you know, this type of suspension design is something that I haven't seen on a commuter scooter before. And I do appreciate Turboant for kind of taking into consideration a lot of the riders that kind of don't want to spend a crazy amount of money on something to get them from point A to point B. Oh, not bad, not bad. Those dual sport tires were definitely there for a reason. That's not bad, actually. I like that. I like that a lot. Alright, let's test the hill climbing capabilities here. We're kind of going up a bridge here. Oof. We're hitting about 11-12 miles an hour. Not too bad. Yeah, this is going up pretty high. The incline is pretty steep here. Oh yeah, can we pass it? On your left. Oh yeah, we got it. Let's go. Really manageable in terms of hill climbing. I'm not going to complain, especially going over 10 miles an hour. And like I mentioned before, this display is actually accurate to GPS. I did match it earlier prior to taking this thing out. So that's a relief because I don't have to take out the GPS and kind of like plant it on the bars. But now we're sort of plateauing here, which is nice. There's another bump. Wow. Honestly, not bad Turboant for a commuter scooter. Alright guys, so just got finished done riding the R9 from Turboant. Honestly, this is a very solid commuter scooter. Again, just from the hill test and just taking it around the bike path as well, I would say this is definitely ideal for someone that's looking to get from point A to point B in a very sort of safe speed, very no hassle type of, no frills type of scooter. Again, this thing I wouldn't use for a daily commute. If your commute involves a lot of like crazy hills, pretty gnarly roads, like really like messed up roads, this is definitely more so like a bike lane, bike path type of scooter. So yeah, let's go over like just a couple of pros and cons that I have on the R9. We're gonna start with the pros. One thing I really do like is the dual suspension. Can handle a little bit of off-road, very light I would say, but I think that the dual suspensions, especially on the front and the rear, for a commuter scooter like this is definitely something you don't see that often. And it's definitely more so like a peace of mind type of thing, knowing that you do have that sort of shock absorption to kind of take some of those bumps. And I think that it's been pretty solid so far. The other pro I like, I do sort of like some of the added smaller features like the signal lights. I like that there is an indicator letting you know that you have your signal on. The folding mechanism is actually really easy to handle. And even though it is 55 pounds, it is manageable carrying it upstairs. So if you do live in like a 3rd, 4th floor apartment, I think this thing is ideal for something to kind of take around. Now in terms of cons, these are not really like big things. I would say these are sort of like small little like call outs here and there. But I would like to see sort of this interface changed. It doesn't have to be with the R9, but just with some of these commuter scooters, I think having it safely on the thumb area where you could change your modes from there rather than having it in the middle, just because I don't want to take my hand off and have to switch, mess around with menus over here. The other sort of thing is I would have liked to see them use a different kind of menu interface. I mean, for some people they won't know what these like battery indicators are, or maybe even having like the straight up 4 or 5 bar indicator, or even like a percentage indicator on here, would just kind of like help people out in terms of like kind of managing their range and stuff like that. Because just from judging like this, I don't know how much battery I have. I guess this is, like I said, 50% possibly. We did about 12-13 miles. So yeah, I just wish maybe this interface would be redone, in terms of this sort of menu layout. All right guys, other than that, that is the R9, our full review of the R9. Really nice scooter. Definitely ideal for that everyday commuter trying to get from point A to point B. For light to medium commutes, definitely a solid choice at only 550 bucks. All right y'all, hope you guys enjoyed today's video today. And yeah, please be sure to leave a like, comment, or even subscribe. And I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace.